Welcome to week 9 of the NAIA men's volleyball update. I am joined here by Alex Bond, the head men's volleyball coach at Cornerstone. Alex, give me a little bit of a rundown of your season so far and where you guys are at right now.
Yeah, first off, appreciate you having me on here. I love watching you record this and getting a little taste of the NAIA and having people see us and recognize us. So I appreciate that. So yeah, where we're at, we've had a great start to the season. It was a lot of hype for this year. We have a very senior heavy year and a lot of build up to this year. And so yeah, I'd say recently we've kind of gone through a mid-season finding ourselves a little bit and had some tough losses, but I still think we've not fully reached our potential yet either. So we're excited for some tough matches this week, and then at the end of the day, it's figuring out who's gonna take the conference playoffs and go from there. But I think that we have a lot more to prove this year for us anyways, for sure.
Now, where are you guys at right now in terms of playing conference matches? I know you guys were, I'm assuming, in spring break last week out in Arizona. But how many games into conference are you, and how many more out of conference matches do you have coming up?
Yeah, we've basically reached the halfway part of the conference. We've played everybody once, and for the most part, some of us have we play back to back the same week of the same team. But we've kind of made it through halfway, and we're starting back up here again, playing everyone. For us, we play everyone twice in our conference, home and away. And so we're starting that back up, and we start off the second half here against obviously the top team in our conference, Lawrence Tech. So we had a tough loss at their place, but they're coming to us this week. So we're hoping for a change in the wind there for sure.
Yeah, you guys, we'll go into this in a minute, but you guys got a big week coming ahead. So appreciate taking the time out. I know you got some scouting to do
Yeah.
the rest of this early week for sure. So quick story for you that I didn't tell before we started this. You guys were in Arizona last week, and I guess you guys were all walking through the airport, and one of my player, do you know Braden Van Groningen?
Yeah.
He's one of my outsides. His dad was in the airport and saw your team, and he recognized your team, and he's like, "Hey, that's Ernest Broadster." And I was like, you should have asked him for an autograph. Like, how hilarious would that have been? Ernest just getting stopped and being recognized, being an NAIA men's volleyball player.
Right.
I'm like, you missed a huge opportunity just to bring a little airport recognition. So, but yeah, he recognized your team walking through the airport in Phoenix because our team was out there playing that same weekend.
That's right.
As well against Benue and Park Gilbert. So. Kind of funny. So,
yeah.
All right, let's talk about some big matches from this past week. I'll read off kind of the 9 biggest matches that I kind of looked over and found, and want to hear your thoughts on a couple of them and see what you're thinking. So, opening up earlier this week, Lawrence Tech beat Georgetown 3-0. I had that match circled, I think, in last week's video. I was filming it like right before they started it, so that was a good win for Lawrence Tech. Reinhardt beat Campbellsville 3-0. Mount Mercy beat William Penn 3-2 in a big heart matchup. Missouri Valley beat Missouri Baptist 3-2 in another big heart matchup. Campbellsville jumped back and dropped Lawrence Tech, their first loss of the year, 3-1. St. Thomas beat Weber International in 5. Hope International beat Ottawa in 5. Governor State beat you guys Cornerstone 3-1, and then Missouri Valley beat Park 3-2. So a lot of 5-setters, a couple heart matchups there, a couple non-conference matchups, and Lawrence Tech's first loss of the year. So have you had a chance to watch that Lawrence Tech match? Because I know you're prepping for them, or is that kind of on the to-do list?
It's started for sure.
Yeah.
With these matchups, sometimes you definitely see a different team that shows up, and you see some tendencies that like Lawrence Tech, they were struggling in that match, and it's not Lawrence Tech's way, it seems like. So and we all have those matches as far as those tough things. So for us to be able to look at that match and then know how they match up against us, it's kind of a completely different game. And so what I'm seeing so far is just yeah, just it's just one of those matches that are, Campbellsville came in with the right game plan and was able to take it from them. So yeah, that was a huge surprise. We were seeing that when that happened, and was yeah, that's volleyball. That's NAI.
Yep. Yeah, I know. A whole lot of back and forth as we've seen this year. And we'll go into a kind of a top 20 later, but there's really only two undefeated teams right now, and everyone else is kind of beating each other up right now.
Yep. Yep.
And you can see that by the number of five setters. I watched the Hope International and Ottawa match earlier this week. We're getting ready to play Hope International this upcoming weekend or this upcoming Thursday. But Ottawa was up 14-11 in the fifth set, and then dropped it 18-16. And so
Wow.
you get just some of those back and forth. You get one
Yep.
server go back there, couple just mental mistakes, and all of a sudden the game flips. And so we've seen that quite a bit.
That has vibes of the NAIA women's final. Did you watch that?
Oh, I didn't track that. What happened there?
That was same thing, fifth set.
Oh,
The what was the I mean, I know it was Indiana Wesleyan. They were down like 14-9 or 14-10 in the fifth set. And there was some attack errors. They were serving aggressive. There were some attack errors, and just they ended up taking for the national championship. And that's just it's crazy at that point because I think teams let their guard down when you get to 14, fifth set, especially being up 3 or 4 points,
yeah.
and it can come back and hurt for sure.
Yep. Those service runs. Yeah, so certainly a big week, and once again for like I feel like the fourth straight week, the rankings in the heart have kind of mixed up again, and at least in my eyes, it's starting to look like Missouri Valley might be the top team, and who knows, maybe this week they drop a couple, and then all of a sudden it flips again to Park or Grandview or William Penn or Mobap again, but that has kind of been a revolving door around there.
Yep.
And so coming up this week, I kind of circled 8 big time matchups. We have Campbellsville versus Georgetown. All right, Campbellsville coming off that win against Lawrence Tech, and that has been the big matchup in their conference. And those two teams are likely going to be fighting again in the finals of their conference tournament. And then you have a heart matchup, Mount Mercy at Grandview. We have Hope International coming to play us at Masters. Ottawa is playing Benue Mesa. Ottawa has been playing well this past week, other than just dropping that 14-11 lead.
Mhm.
Lawrence Tech is going to you guys. That's a big time matchup in your conference. William Penn travels to Missouri Baptist. St. Xavier plays you guys. St. Xavier is another undefeated team.
Mhm.
So you guys get a crack at them, and that is at your place, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
you guys have it at home. So that's a
Yeah.
good matchup to follow. And then Grandview also heads to Missouri Baptist. So other than you guys being kind of in 2 of those games, which of those matchups do you find kind of most interesting leading into this week?
Yeah, I'd say first two that come to mind is Campbellsville, Georgetown. We've gotten to play both of those, have had victory over both of them, but the Campbellsville over Lawrence Tech, they just seem to have momentum going with them right now. And I know they're a big rival. Campbellsville, Georgetown have always kind of been a big rival. And so I know that Campbellsville will be coming into that. Is that at Georgetown
Uh,
or is that
I
at
missed that.
Campbellsville?
I think it might be a Georgetown, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're used to playing in each other's gyms. I think this could be a time where Campbellsville takes that momentum with them, and but Georgetown, obviously, they're a tough team, and they've had changeover for them in their program this year. So I still think they have a lot more potential to live up to for them as well. But that'll be interesting to see in their playoffs as well. I think it will probably come down to those two, but. And then OUAZ and Benue,
Yep.
again, another rival match.
You saw both those teams just a week ago too.
Yeah, yeah. I I think if OUAZ can overcome that tough loss and be able to regroup at Benue, Benue's just been playing really well lately. But two of those, yeah, definitely will be fun to see results of for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ben, you came off a win last weekend against Park Gilbert. Previously lost my program. But we kind of caught them on a good day of they were on their fourth match, thanks to you guys in Morningside going out
Yeah.
during your spring break. They were on their fourth match of the week. So it seemed like they were a little bit tired and we were ready to go that day. But any given
It's
day,
tough.
I could see that match going either way. And that's another match, Ottawa and Benue, even though historically they have not been in the same conference, has been quite a rivalry too.
Mhm.
They're both sitting in opposite parts of Phoenix, but
Yep.
they've gone back and forth quite a bit over the years.
Yep.
Um,
Definitely.
so very interesting to see how that goes. I am kind of most fascinated to see the St. Xavier match going to you guys. And Tom, if you're watching this, Alex just really wants to give me a scouting report. So I'm already starting to watch a lot of St. Xavier matches. I know Tom's watching us too, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is a good segue into our top 20 this week.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
so we're gonna be releasing this video today, but I think either tomorrow or on Wednesday, the next
Hmm.
top 15 poll comes out. And for
Yep.
those of you guys that don't know, how that works is there's a couple raters from each conference across the country that are actually asked to rate the top 20 teams, not just top 15. So we rate 1 through 20, and then top 15 gets released, and then there's some others that receive votes and you might get some variance from coach to coach across the country. And each team gets a certain number of points depending on how many, what place each coach puts them in, and then that final cumulative order gets thrown in there. So that's kind of how that top 15 is accumulated. Um, but we're coming up on another week here that we got a top 15 poll, and for the first time this season, I'm actually gonna share what my top 15 is, and we'll go through and see what you think as we go through. So number one, and we've kind of had this so far all season, has been Masters. We've got. I'll read through kind of everyone's big wins and significant losses too. We have wins over Concordia Irvine, Vanguard, Menlo, Westcliff, Stanford, UC Merced, Olivet Nazarene, Jamestown, Benue Mesa, and Ottawa. And still currently undefeated going into this week. At number two, I have St. Xavier. They are another undefeated team. They have wins over Georgetown, Mount Mercy, Missouri Baptist, Olivet Nazarene, Benue Mesa, and Jamestown, and no losses as well. I've actually kind of said all season I could see that going back and forth each way. We started the year at number one and they started at number two, and I think all the coaches have kind of kept that the whole way through. But I could see that honestly going either way on any given week.
Mhm.
And it seems like that's pretty easily the consensus top two right now, considering we're the only two undefeated teams. And then it starts to get a little bit trickier from there on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so my number three right now is going to be what I think might be the top team in the heart at this moment, which is Missouri Valley.
Hmm.
Um, they have two losses right now. They've got a loss to Missouri Baptist and a loss to Park. The loss to MoBap was in 5. The loss to Park was in 4, with some significant wins over Jamestown, Benue Mesa, William Penn, Grandview, and then wins over both MoBap and Park as well. So the two teams that they have lost to, they've also beaten.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things in my eyes that kind of separates them from the rest of the Hart teams is they really don't have any bad losses. I don't see either one of those losses being considered a bad loss, right? Any of those teams could win on any given day, but they have shown a little bit more consistency than some of the other teams in
Yeah.
the Hart so far.
And I
Is
will,
that your view as well in terms of where
yeah,
the Hart's shaking out?
at this point, yeah. I mean, I think Missouri Valley's win over Benue has a little bit more significance over kind of the rest of the heart. And so as you're saying too, the losses to those other teams are it depends, I think, where you're playing the Heart at. Like if you're home, you definitely have that
Yeah,
advantage and stuff. So I would agree. It's tough to really, I mean, it's gonna work itself out, but it's tough
yeah,
to really put much difference there than just that. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I've got a sleeper team at my number 4 right now that I'm sure plenty of coaches would disagree with, and a few coaches might agree with. But my number 4 right now is going to be St. Thomas. They were actually receiving votes in the last poll, and I think I had them in that 15 to 20 range last week. But as everyone else kind of just beats up on each other, they're sitting here as a one-loss team, and that one loss is to Park, Missouri. They've got wins over Weber and Jamestown. I put them at 4 right now, kind of as a soft 4 of like, I don't really know, right? They're kind of in a region in Florida that they have a harder time playing a lot of these Midwest teams or West Coast teams. Um, just personally, like I understand that we're out in California, kind of a little bit isolated from a lot of the NAIA teams. It's hard to get certain teams on the schedule, and
Yep.
and I don't want to knock them because of where they're located,
Hmm.
right? That's not like a valid reason to knock them, but just kind of taking it at face value of how they're playing and where they are and who they've lost to, being a one-loss team this far into the season,
Hmm.
uh, does speak a lot into kind of the level that they're playing at, the consistency that they're playing at. Uh, and that one loss was the first match of the year. That was against Park, Missouri, who was healthy at the time. Right, they had lost their starting opposite for what a month and a half. Right, I think he's back as of like this past week. But they lost to a good Park team, a healthy Park team, and I have them all the way up at number 4. What are your thoughts on St. Thomas right now? And where do you have them?
I I have them lower. I will say that.
That's
It's
completely fair.
tough for me to and this is nothing against St. Thomas. I completely agree with what you're saying. They are to be as consistent as they're playing right now speaks to especially mid-season like this, they're going through some slumps. Like they obviously have produced something a lot of teams can't do right now. And so I definitely have them up there. I think I have them more like six, somewhere 6 through 8. But
Okay.
I definitely see they are that sleeper team that has definitely made a statement here. I'm curious their schedule upcoming
I
to
mean,
see if
I mean they
there's
they have a match against Reinhardt here at the end, and I think that's going to be the real question mark. Even that conference, I think, probably has Reinhardt ranked above St. Thomas right now.
yeah,
I think a lot of that's based on they haven't played yet. There's a little bit more history with Reinhardt. I think sometimes us as Raiders we take history, previous years, a little
yeah,
bit too much into consideration,
yeah, definitely.
which can be a little bit of just a fallacy in terms of the level we're playing at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's
yeah, I
tough
mean,
because they don't have many cross conference matchups to really get a good measure of where they might be at
they don't.
nationwide. So yeah,
This scary thing. I say this as coming from a coach of one of the top teams here. Like when you get to nationals, right? I could very easily see the committee putting them rather low because they don't have those top wins, and them being that sleeper team,
yep,
right? If they're a 10, 11, 12 seed, like maybe they could upset a top 4 team,
yeah.
right? Because they're just underseeded. It could have been
Was that?
underranked at the time.
Would you think that was Weber International last year?
I thought that was Reinhardt last year.
Reinhardt. It was Reinhardt. You're right.
Yeah, it
Where
was Reinhardt last year.
they
Yeah,
ended up winning a match.
they pulled off an upset at
Yeah,
nationals, right?
yeah,
Because they're just very hard. I'm not saying that ranking is necessarily wrong, but it's just very hard to rank them,
yeah,
right? And so that's where I value just as much good wins as don't have bad losses,
yeah.
right? And that's where St. Thomas has been, right? They don't have as many good wins, based on who they've played, but they also just don't have bad losses,
Right.
which is something to be said because a lot of other teams have bad losses,
Yep.
right? And so
Exactly.
that level of consistency could be dangerous coming down the stretch. One of the interesting things, and probably a big factor into me bumping them up so high, um, is that's how high they're sitting in the Massey rankings right now, as well. They're sitting at number 4 overall in the Massey rankings, and that's taking into consideration your point differential uh, against other teams that you've played. And so, they're quite high in that. And I think, if they're going into nationals as a 10, 11, 12 seed, that they'd be a dangerous team to run up against.
Yeah.
So if that happens to be the case, maybe they'll end up in St. Xavier's pool. We'll see.
Yeah.
Uh, So,
Yeah.
all right, sitting at number 5, I have actually. You said you had St. Thomas a little bit lower.
Yeah. So I
Who
have
is your number 4?
my four is Lawrence Tech,
Martech. Okay.
just because of, it's yes, Campbellsville I say is one loss. I think Campbellsville has definitely made a run as of late, which I think they're going to be a little bit higher in
Yep.
rankings this time around. So while it's still a hurt, I think it still is not a terrible loss compared to some of ours that we've had. But I would say, yeah, I still have them kind of up there at 4 right now. So
Yep. And I think in the last rankings they were at number 3.
correct.
And so dropped them, and they were 3 rightfully so because they were undefeated. Losing to Campbellsville, now they're a one-loss team, and so that, to me, that drops them down into the mix of, hey, how do you consider this against some other teams with a bad loss? You can see based on my rankings, I factor in bad losses maybe a little bit more than good wins. I don't know, maybe that's just me
Yeah.
looking at it. My number 5 team though wasn't even Lawrence Tech. I dropped Lawrence Tech to number 6, but I put Benue Mesa at number 5.
Yep.
They've got 3 losses right now. Those 3 losses are against Masters, St. Xavier, and Missouri Valley, who I have as my number 1, 2, and 3 teams in the country.
Yep.
And so to me, like, if we're now viewing Missouri Valley that high and Benue's lost them, looks a little bit better. I think that is the benefit that Benue Mesa has had in this last week as Missouri Valley continues to do well. They have wins over Hope International, over Cornerstone, over Westcliff, and over Jamestown twice. Hey, Will, I'm on my weekly YouTube video, so you can pop in and say hi and then come watch yourself later. We got one of our middle blockers, Will Abra.
Oh man.
Nice to meet you. I'll see this later.
You too.
Will's a fan of the show, so
yeah.
he'll watch it later.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here in my office. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I've got Benue Mesa at number 5. Where do you have Benue Mesa? Is that
Right
kind of your
there.
next tier?
Yeah, right there. I
Okay.
think they have not they have maybe not gotten credit up until this point of really how good they are.
Yeah.
They obviously handled us really well, and just some of the teams they obviously with their losses, I think maybe that probably is hard for some Raiders to justify 3 losses being in the top 5, but being those top 5 losses, they're the top 3 teams, as you're saying.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
agreed. And so yeah, I think there's significance there. And I think it just goes to show too that they're after the top 2, 3, I think there is a little bit of a gap between where the rest of the teams lie. But yeah, I would agree. Benue's kind of they've been doing really well lately, and they have a lot of key players that make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, like Landon Fuller and Dupree Rogers are 2 guys that could take over any given night, right? They can have some off nights too, for sure, if you can slow them down. We slowed them down pretty well, and that's why we won. But they're very talented players that can take over matches for sure. So that could be another sleeper team, another dangerous team come tournament time.
Absolutely.
I don't think they're going to be underranked. But they're likely, I mean, in my eyes, and again, maybe I'm a little bit biased because they're in our conference. If we end up winning our conference tournament, I think they are a shoe-in for, they should be an at-large team.
I would agree.
And so I think it's very likely that our conference gets two teams in the tournament with us and Venue, depending on kind of how our tournament finishes. But yeah, I see them as like right on that borderline of the top 5 team right now. So, all right. So my number 6, and we'll go in my order, but we'll talk about yours as well. My number 6 was Lawrence Tech, who we just chatted about. Their loss to Campbellsville was a tougher one for them, but they have good wins over Grandview, William Penn, you guys Cornerstone, and Georgetown. So a couple good quality wins. One loss that's not so great against a team that's heating up a little bit right now in Campbellsville. But they're certainly playing some good volleyball. Number 7 overall, I have what I view right now as the second team in the Heart, which could be up for debate. But Missouri Baptist, right now they have wins over Missouri Valley, who's a top 3 team looking like, Park, Missouri, Olivet Nazarene, and Governor State. And their losses are to Missouri Valley, Mount Mercy, St. Xavier, and Maryville, a D2 team, right? And so I don't see that Maryville as a bad loss at all. I think they've been playing some pretty consistent volleyball. Some couple losses to a couple top 3 teams in St. Xavier and Missouri Valley. Then that Mount Mercy, it's kind of hard to rank Mount Mercy, and we'll go into them later. Right now, but that would be their toughest loss. But Mount Mercy is a good team, and Mount Mercy is a team that will certainly be at nationals as well, whether they get an automatic bid in the Heart or an at-large, or they get the host bid. Right, they're a local team that they will almost certainly be at that 650 winning percentage that guarantees them that host bid. So they're going to be a team that we see at the end of the year. Who did you have as your let's talk about second team up in the Heart? Did you have MoBap or did you have someone else?
No, MoBap for sure. I think it's kind of clear as they MoBap and Missouri Valley, as they have that rivalry there and going back and forth between them. Yeah, I would agree. I think the loss maybe to Mount Mercy is the one that definitely sets them lower than Missouri Valley for sure.
Yep. My number 8 team overall is the next up in the Heart, Park, Missouri. They have wins over St. Thomas, which, again, we talked about. You could view that a lot of different ways. Wins over Westcliff, wins over Missouri S&T, a D2 team, and a win over Missouri Valley, which is looking better and better. And they have losses to Missouri Valley, Missouri Baptist, Mount Mercy, and their bad loss, I would say, is against Jamestown. So that kind of dropped them down a little bit to me. Now, that being said, I think one of the big question marks for that team is their starting opposite. I think his name's Adrian Figueroa. He started earlier in the year, is getting a lot of sets for them. Got hurt, had some injury. He was out for about a month and a half. He is finally back. So we've seen him show up on some stat sheets this past week. I haven't been able to watch him as much, but I think they are certainly have the potential to be a higher level team as they're healthy. And so I think they could be a team that, as we look into the end of the year, maybe they have got a couple losses that they might not have had they been super healthy. And so we'll see how healthy they are going into the end of the year, and if they can make some waves. Certainly a team that could end up being underseeded again at the end if they can make it to the tournament, just based on a couple losses that might have had to do something with just them not being at 100%. So very interesting there. My number 9 team overall is another team in the Heart, Grandview. They have less, I kind of put them at 4th in the Heart because I see them as having less significant wins. They have a win over Mount Mercy, and then losses to Lawrence Tech, William Penn, and Missouri Valley, right? 3 losses that I wouldn't say any of them are bad losses. William Penn is probably the worst of those 3 losses, but not as many quality wins as some of the other Heart teams right now. Right. And part of that's just having to do with their schedule. They play some of the tougher teams in the schedule in the back half of the Heart scheduling for their conference. And so we will really see if they move up a lot or move down a lot in the next few weeks. I think that will be a big indicator as to if they're going to make a run and get back to nationals. What was your thought on those last couple teams in the Heart conference and kind of where the Heart's sitting at right now?
Yeah, it's tough right now. I mean, we're gonna get into talking about some of the river states and the Appalachian. It's tough to really see where they're at compared to those. I do also have Park at 8. I have Grandview a little bit lower, and kind of closer to that Mount Mercy, um, really close to those two as well. So that's just kind of so I have um, Park at 8. Um, I actually have us like lower, us as Cornerstone. So I have Park at 8. I have and then Georgetown at 9.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and then below that will be for me Grandview at 10, um, Mount Mercy at 11. And then I get into Reinhardt, us, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So we can get into that. But yeah, I
Yeah. Yeah.
have
So my 10, 11, I'll say my 10, 11, 12, 13. I have you guys a little bit higher than you have you. Right, which is natural. We always look at our own team and go, oh boy. But I have you guys at 10 right now, right? You guys have good wins over Georgetown, Campbellsville, Reinhardt, and Governor State. And then you have losses to Lawrence Tech, Benue Mesa, Ottawa, and Governor State as well. So splitting with Governor State. Last rankings period 2 weeks ago, you guys were, I think, number 5 overall, something like that, right? With 3 losses in the last 2 weeks, certainly dropping down. The question is how far. But I have you guys at number 10. And I put you guys at 10 because I have you guys still staying over Georgetown right now, who you guys beat in the head-to-head. Now, Georgetown, I have at 11. They have wins over Reinhardt, Indiana Tech, UC Merced, with losses to St. Xavier, Cornerstone, and Lawrence Tech. So Georgetown, not bad losses necessarily, but also not like really, really high wins. So I went Cornerstone, then Georgetown, 10, 11, and then 12, I have Reinhardt. Reinhardt has wins over Campbellsville twice, which is looking a little bit better after Campbellsville pulled off the Lawrence Tech win this past week. And then a win over D2 King University. I don't know how good King is this year. They've been decent in the past, but and then Reinhardt has losses to Georgetown and Cornerstone. So based on those head-to-heads between Cornerstone, Georgetown, Reinhardt, Cornerstone beats Georgetown, Georgetown beats Reinhardt. That's kind of the order that I kept it in, 10, 11, 12. And then my 13 goes to Mount Mercy, the next team up in the Heart. So I kind of threw those teams, those AAC, River States teams, kind of right in the middle of that Heart mix, separating those. And Mount Mercy has wins over William Penn, Park, Missouri, and Mobap. But then they have losses to Grandview, St. Xavier, and probably the worst loss is UHSP. And that's why I kind of have Mount Mercy a little bit lower, because they have the worst loss of that group of the top teams of the Heart Conference. So give me your list in terms of who else you had up to maybe number 13.
Yeah, this is where, based off of like where Georgetown is at, and obviously the win against them was good for us, but I actually have them like 3 spots above us.
Sure.
They have tough losses again, and that was an early season. Early season, I think it's hard to really gauge. Some just teams come with a lot more hype than other ones,
Yeah.
and
you guys have played really well early season, and the last 2 weeks have been more of a challenge, right?
Right. And so I kind of flipped that. So I have Georgetown 9, I have Grandview 10, Mount Mercy 11. I think Mount Mercy, while I would have them, kind of being the lower of those Heart in the top 15, just because I would agree with the UHSP, that matchup being a tough loss. And so Then I have us at 12, Cornerstone, and then Reinhardt at 13. Um, so yeah, it was really hard to try to figure out where we compare to the Heart because we haven't played any of the Heart teams
Yeah.
this year. So, but I do think our
And
losses are a
the
little.
Heart teams were tough to schedule this year too, because they have so many in-conference games that they're
Yep,
limited on how many out-of-conference games they have. And so getting those
absolutely.
cross-conference matches were a little bit of a challenge this year.
Yep.
And so yeah, they're going to play each other a lot and beat up on each other a little bit. But it's hard. It's really hard for both the Raiders and the selection committee at the end of the year to answer this question of how good is the Heart versus these non-conference teams when
Right.
the Heart plays each other a lot, and especially if we want to go off the assumption of like, let's not take previous year's histories into account for how we rate this year's team,
Yep.
because last year is last year and this year is this year, right?
Right. Right.
So, all right, rounding out the top 15, I've given my list up to 13 right now. I have Westcliff and Hope International going back to the West Coast. Um, I have Westcliff at 14. They have wins over Ottawa twice, Hope International and Morningside, and then losses to Park, Missouri, Benue Mesa, Masters, and Olivet Nazarene. Olivet Nazarene would be the worst of those. We played Olivet Nazarene. They're not a bad team by any means, but they don't have the big wins other than Hope, which is a top 15 team. And so that's why I kind of have them below Mount Mercy. And then I have Hope at number 15. Hope has wins over Lords and Ottawa. Again, don't really have the big signature wins yet. I'm knocking on wood because we play them on Thursday. And Hope has losses to Olivet Nazarene, Menlo, Westcliff, and Benue Mesa. So no bad losses by Hope right now. But also they just don't have the signature wins right now that really justify them moving up into that tier where Mount Mercy, Reinhardt, Georgetown, and you guys are at. So who did you have in your 14 and 15?
I agree. I have Westcliff at 14. I have actually Campbellsville at 15 and then
Okay.
Hope at 16. As you said, I think Hope International not having that signature win, I think is what really is hindering me from putting them above Campbellsville and having Campbellsville obviously winning against Lawrence Tech. And again, I think Governor State is actually a pretty significant win too. That's why I have them just above Hope. But yeah.
Yep. And my 16 is Campbellsville right there. So we're not far off right there.
Yeah, right.
So Campbellsville has wins over Olivet Nazarene, Lawrence Tech, which is the big one this past week. I'm not sure if I had Campbellsville ranked before this past week, and that kind of jumped them up a number of spots for that Lawrence Tech win. And then Governor State, which was a good win for them. Now Campbellsville also has 6 losses, and so they're a little bit higher in the loss category, which is kind of holding them back from jumping up a tier. But they have losses to Jamestown, which is not even receiving votes right now, Reinhardt twice, Cornerstone, St. Thomas, and Cumberland. And so Campbellsville is that high and low team. I don't see right now how they would be considered in an at-large conversation. But they could certainly go head-to-head against Georgetown. We'll see how that finishes. We'll see that match this week. Obviously, matches we're trying to keep an eye on. So, number 17, 18, 19, 20. All right, I'll read through mine, and then let's see if you have any other teams that you would throw in there. I have Governor State, which has wins over you guys, Cornerstone, Weber, and William Penn. But they have a number of losses. St. Ambrose is probably their lowest loss. Missouri Baptist, Cornerstone, Olivet Nazarene, Campbellsville, and St. Thomas. And so I put them one step below Campbellsville, losing that head-to-head. And then number 18, I put as Weber International. This is a very difficult team to rank because they've lost to St. Thomas in 5 twice. And I put St. Thomas at number 4. And so I have 14 spots between St. Thomas and Weber. Weber has no real signature wins, though. They've got 2 losses to St. Thomas and 1 loss to Governor State. So I put them at 18. right behind Governor State. They certainly could be much higher, but it's really hard to tell right now without that signature win. I have William Penn at number 19 with one win over Grandview is their big one. But then they have losses to Mount Mercy twice, Missouri Valley, Lawrence Tech, ACU, Oakland City, and Governor State. And then I put Ottawa AZ at number 20. Their one good signature win is you guys beating Cornerstone last week. They also have losses to Dordt, Westcliff twice, Jessup, Hope, and Masters. What's your kind of finishing out top 20 or any other teams that you would probably throw out there?
Yeah, so I do have Governors at 17, and I do have Weber at 18. I have William Penn at 20, and then 19. I don't have OUAZ. I actually, and I need to actually look at this again because I've been following Cumberland a little bit. I know they're right there in the mix, and I didn't really look at where they were at. They've been on my radar to be in those rankings. I know they're receiving votes right now. But they did beat Campbellsville recently, lost in 4 to Lawrence Tech, beat Life. They're kind of up and down too. They have some,
and that's what you're going to get with the number 20 team. It's going to be some good and some bad.
Right. So 19, I have Cumberland. Just based off of kind of what they've done recently with Campbellsville, especially since Campbellsville has that win against Lawrence Tech, it puts a little bit more significance to it. But yeah,
perfect.
I have OUAZ out just because of some of their losses. That's the only reason I would say.
Their loss
nothing against them.
Probably the one that hurts them
really,
the most.
Yeah, they played really well against us. So nothing against them, but
Sure. Well, thank you for adding your top 20 in. And I am fascinated to see kind of how the rest of the coaches vote on this and see what comes out on, I think it's Wednesday. The next rankings come out
Wednesday.
They're starting to ask us to vote on these, so I'll get my votes in soon as I'm one of the raters. But that is our week 9 recap. Alex, thank you so much for joining, and good luck the rest of the season.